In 2014, the United States go through an economic collapse, causing a totalitarian political party called New Founding Fathers of America to take over the government. With the support of his followers, the president passes a new law known as the Purge. This law allows all crimes to be legal once a year for 12 night hours. Emergency services aren't available. Level 10 government officials can't be harmed, and weapons above Class 4 like rocket launchers are forbidden. Everything else is allowed, including murder. The Purge becomes an outlet for people's darkest urges and allows them to lead calmer lives the rest of the year. So by 2022, the United States is practically crime-free and the unemployment rate has dropped to 1%. On the day of the 2022 Purge, James is driving home while finishing some sales on the phone. He sells security systems specifically designed for the Purge, which means he makes lots of money that allows him to live in a very fancy gated community in Los Angeles. There are blue flowers in his car and many of the neighbors have them in their yards too, which symbolize support for the Purge law. James makes it home an hour before the Purge. His wife Mary tells him that their daughter has been sulking in her room all day because her parents won't let her date an older boy, but James thinks she needs to get over it. In the room, Zoe is secretly hanging with her boyfriend Henry. When she hears that her father is back, she makes Henry sneak out through the balcony. They notice a neighbor sharpening a machete in preparation for tonight. Mary goes out to put the flowers James brought in her yard and is approached by her neighbor Grace. She admires the new addition to Mary's home, pointing out she was able to afford it because everyone in the neighborhood bought a security system from James. She also says that unlike previous years, she won't have a party tonight. When Mary goes back inside, she's startled by something following her, but it's just a creepy toy being controlled by her son Charlie, who likes hiding in a special spot in the closet wall. He comes out to explain he's updated his toy with night vision and insulated the motor to make it silent. During dinner, the family bonding is interrupted when Charlie notices there are only 5 minutes left for the Purge. James rushes to turn on the security cameras and notices 2 armed neighbors ready to hunt, which surprises him because those 2 guys aren't friends. He also sees that Grace is having a party, which means Grace lied to Mary not to invite him. After grabbing a gun from his safe, James activates the lockdown mode, which blocks all doors and windows. The TV starts the emergency broadcast system, which announces the beginning of the Purge and reminds everyone of the rules. After an alarm rings in the neighborhood, Zoe rushes to her room and is suddenly tackled on the bed by Henry, who sneaked back into the house while the family was having dinner. Zoe wants to get dirty, but Henry interrupts their kissing, saying he's come to confront James. The family then tries to keep themselves busy while the night continues. James does some paperwork while watching the violent results of the Purge on TV, and Charlie is playing around with his remote control toy, disturbed by the gory images on television. Mary worries when she hears gunshots in the neighborhood, but there's nothing on the cameras, so James tells her it's fine. Minutes later, Charlie checks the cameras with his toy and notices someone running on the streets. He runs to take a closer look at the screens and hears the wounded man begging for help. Gunshots can be heard in the distance, so Charlie temporarily disables the security system and quickly moves to open the front door to let the injured stranger in. James notices the change and rushes to activate the lockdown mode again. The gate starts closing, but the wounded man manages to slide in just in time. When Charlie's parents see the stranger, James gets his gun ready. At the same time, Henry comes downstairs and pulls a gun on James, but he's seen by Mary, who warns her husband. Both Henry and James move as they open fire, and James doesn't get hurt, but Henry does, and Zoe has to help him return to her room. Henry is bleeding heavily and Zoe doesn't know how to help. Meanwhile, James realizes the stranger has disappeared and scolds Charlie for letting him in while taking him and Mary to the security room. Once they're safely hidden, James goes looking for Zoe only to find Henry dead in her bedroom. In the corridor, the stranger moves unnoticed. Suddenly, Mary hears Zoe calling for her and leaves the room to meet her. She's freaking out over her boyfriend's death and swears she hadn't known his intentions. Before Mary can do anything, Zoe runs to hide in shame. At that moment, a bunch of masked young adults armed with all kinds of weapons appear in the yard. When they ring the bell, Charlie and his parents check the screens and find the gang leader taking his mask off in front of the front camera. He knows who this house belongs to and talks to the family as if they were colleagues, offering a speech about the importance of the Purge and commenting on the blue flowers. The gang is behind the stranger's wounds, and the neighbors told them that he's hiding in James' house. The leader asks the family to send the stranger out so the gang can finish purging, giving them time until their equipment arrives. If by then the stranger isn't released, the gang will break into the house to kill the family. As the group walks away, the power goes out in the house, so the backup generators activate to keep the cameras on. Mary asks James if the security system will protect them, but he admits the system is practically just for show. It discourages casual passersby but won't withstand heavy force. Charlie doesn't want to kick the wounded man out, but James points out they don't have a choice. Using flashlights, James and Mary split to look for the guy around the house, finding many bloodstains on their way. Mary is startled when she hears pounding on the gate and the voices of the gang members asking for the injured guy. In the security room, Charlie watches the gang making dirty gestures for the cameras or playing like children in the garden. Eventually, James finds the stranger in a corridor and tries to chase him, but he quickly loses sight of him in the darkness. Then Charlie sends out his toy and uses its night vision to find the man hiding behind the couch in the living room. At first, the stranger is creeped out by the toy, but after some hesitation, he starts following him. Charlie uses the toy to guide the man to a special spot on the closet wall. By the time Mary reaches that room, the stranger has already covered the hole and he can't be seen. Suddenly Mary is startled by a strange noise in another corridor and decides to go investigate. Meanwhile, the gang leader yells for James, asking him to come to the door to discuss the situation. James explains to him that he supports the purge and he'll give them the stranger, he just can't find him. When another gang member complains about the wait, the leader shoots him in the head before reminding James that their equipment will arrive soon and that will help them get in. Back to Zoe. She talks to her brother through the toy to tell him she's found a gun that she'll hide in his secret spot for now. By the time James continues his search, he finds the stranger keeping Zoe at gunpoint. The guy tries to convince James to drop his weapon, saying he doesn't deserve to die. While James argues with him, Mary appears behind them and James tells her to shoot. Before running, the stranger drops Zoe, causing her to hit her head on the wall and fall unconscious. James chases after him and tackles him to the ground, where they start to fight. After some struggle, a gun is accidentally fired and the man gains a new wound. Then James grabs a vase and hits the man to knock him out. Minutes later, James and Mary are tying the guy up using tape. When they move him to a chair, the man wakes up and tries to escape again. James immediately grabs him and tells Mary to stab him with a letter opener from the desk. Ignoring Charlie's protests, Mary grabs the opener and inserts it into the man's wound, pushing until he agrees to cooperate. James then puts him on a chair and begins adding more tape, but Mary realizes they're being cruel and announces she can't do this anymore. When she turns around, she notices Charlie is missing and goes looking for him. At the same time, Zoe wakes up and she also calls James out for his violent attitude before leaving the room. Seeing this interaction, the stranger tells James to hand him to the gang to save the kids, but now James feels bad too. While looking for Charlie, Mary notices some lights outside and looks through the window to discover that the gang is tying a truck to the gate using a chain. Mary runs back to her family and James announces he won't kick the stranger out. He gives Charlie a gun and tells him to hide. Then he and Mary go looking for more weapons so they can get ready to fight. At that moment, the gang leader announces time is over and yells about serving the need to purge. The truck pulls back and in just 1 second they completely bring down the protected gate. James and Mary rush to hide while the gang destroys the remaining glass to start making their way inside. In the other room, the stranger falls off his chair to reach for the letter opener. The gang walks around the house, sometimes shooting randomly in certain rooms. Charlie hears all the noise and tries to hide further in his room, but a gang members find him and grabs Charlie's wrist before he can shoot him. Then he drags the kid out of his hiding spot by the hair. When the person gets ready to shoot Charlie, James appears behind him and kills him first. Then James hides Charlie in a different room with a new gun. In the meantime, Zoe hides under a bed and sees a person enter the room. Before he can find her, the leader calls the guy to show him a picture of Zoe on the wall and asks him to save her for him. Downstairs, James is startled by another gang member and quickly shoots him down. Then he encounters a couple who jump to avoid the bullets when James opens fire. The guy manages to reach James and push him against the wall, but James punches him to push him off. Then he has to dodge the axe attacks from the girl, but this distraction is enough for the guy to recover and jump on James again to start choking him on the pool table. James grabs a ball and hits the attacker on the head to knock him down. The girl tries attacking again too, but James kills her with a shot. At that moment, the guy hits James with a cue stick and disarms him, so now both men are fighting for the gun. A desperate James slams the boy's head on a pinball machine until he's dead too. Suddenly another gang member bursts through the window and James grabs his arm to avoid getting shot. The men fall on the floor and start fighting, rolling until they reach weapons again. James grabs the axe first and hits the man on the back before also shooting just in case. Afterward, he tries to leave the room, only to be cornered and stabbed by the leader, who gently lowers his body to the ground while saying James' soul has been cleansed. He even thanks him for the experience and kisses his forehead before leaving. As the other gang members run around the house destroying things, Charlie watches the security cameras and notices the neighbors gathering outside. There are 2 gang members still waiting in the truck and the neighbors immediately kill them. Meanwhile, Mary continues to move through the house and gets suddenly smashed against the wall by a gang woman. A man soon joins them and holds Mary down while the woman tortures her with tickling. Then she takes out a blade, but before she can attack, the neighbors arrive and shoot both gang members down. As she recovers, Mary hears more gunshots in the other rooms and goes to investigate, only to find a bleeding James by the stairs. She yells for her kids and Charlie immediately comes, but so does the gang leader. When he's about to shoot them, Zoe shows up and kills him first. Then she apologizes to her father before he dies. Then the family is surrounded by the neighbors, who have finished killing the rest of the gang. Grace announces that the family is theirs before the neighbors drag James' body away and try tying the rest of the family up. Mary fights back, but she's forced to cooperate when they threaten to kill the kids. As Mary and the kids are tied with tape, Grace explains the locals were tired of James' family showing off the money they made by putting a price on their neighbor's safety. The group gets their weapons ready to execute the family, but first they share a prayer in favor of the purge in the USA. Suddenly Charlie's toy appears in the room, and while everyone is distracted, the wounded stranger makes a return to punch or shoot a few neighbors while taking Grace hostage. He forces everyone to drop their weapons and release the family before letting Grace go. Then he tells Mary to make a choice and Grace asks for a quick end, but Mary wants to end the violence. She makes everyone sit in the living room and wait the remaining hours in silence. Later, with only a few minutes of purging left, Mary turns to check on the children and Grace tries taking the gun from her. However, Mary immediately hits her in the face with it and smashes her head on the table, reminding her of the deal. At that moment, an alarm wails announcing the end of the purge and Mary kicks everyone out of her house. Soon, police cars, ambulances, and fire truck sirens can be heard in the area. The radio starts covering the results of the purge, saying that this year has been the most successful purge to date and that market stocks are booming, thanks to the massive sales of weapons and security systems. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.